Hello, fellow Gîtes. Well, today I'm talking to Annette from Rural Gîtes here in the Dordogne, who purchased her property 22 years ago with her husband Peter. And since then, the property has taken on lots of different forms. And it now has three really successful, lovely Gîtes. And we're going to talk about everything like costs and revenue, guests, and importantly, the future.
Welcome to the Gite podcast. Brought to you by Gite Guru.
Annette, welcome to the Jeet podcast.
Very much. Thank you for asking me.
You were one of our clients 3 or 4 years ago, and you have a very interesting property in the northwest of the Dordogne.
Yeah.
So quite a long way from us. But describe your Jeets to us, because you've got quite a few, haven't you?
Yeah. So we bought our property 21 years ago, mainly because of the holiday options for us as a family. And at the time, we needed some holidays with accessibility for our son. The property came with a very large barn. And 10 years into owning the property, I had this sort of harebrained idea that we would convert our fermet, the one we now live in, into one gîte, and the barn would be our grand design. Anyway, we looked at it with the architect we decided to commission. And he said, if you want to make any money at all, don't only have one gîte, have more than one. And we can make this building, looking at my grand design, he said we could turn this into three, which is what we then did. So we have one small gîte, which is at the back of the barn, which was originally some sort of lean-to, but now
The ground floor.
On the ground floor. And that was like a little garage and sheep dip area, which is now no longer like that. So that's a 2-bedroom gîte, sleeps 4. And then we did the other 2. So we have a first floor apartment, which sleeps 6, and we have a downstairs apartment. And the idea was, the way the architect designed it, which has actually been really, really positive, is that each family has a view of the pool, but not of each other, unless they're sat poolside. So they all have a private terrace and, their own space, but they come together poolside. So we can sleep 16.
And they have their own entrances as well, don't they?
Yes.
So
yes.
all they're sharing really is the outdoor space, and inside it's completely private.
We talked originally about dividing it in the middle and having a right and a left side. But what he did was, inspired, and it works really well. And we have, really happy guests. So I'm really chuffed with it.
You can accommodate 4 guests in one and 6 guests each in the other 2. So a total of 16 guests you could have.
16 guests.
How big is your pool in order to accommodate 3 groups?
So we've got a 10 by 5, and it's 1.5 meters deep. But interestingly, if you've got different families, they tend to sort of drift in and out. You get mum and dad maybe having an early morning swim, and then they'll go off for the day and come back later afternoon. And then somebody else has gone out for the afternoon because they've swum in the morning. And if they do sit round the pool, then, they all sort of get quite chummy. And we know of several families who are still in touch with each other. And in fact, my son was a guest a couple of years ago, actually in a gîte with his 3 kids, and they are still in touch. The children write to each other as pen pals. And
Brilliant.
we try and do a sort of a meet and greet drinks thing, so at least we get over the awkwardness.
You recognise that there can be awkwardness and sharing facilities could be problematic, but you must have guests coming and going at different times.
Yeah, so if somebody's here for 2 weeks and the middle Saturday is a couple of new families or a new family, we just say to them, do you want to have some drinks? And most people are like, yeah, because they know the week before it was quite nice for them. And it's really useful because often the guests that are already on site will say, oh, we went to X and Y and that was fab. And then they're away and I don't have to worry about them.
You have a brilliant part of your website, which is your recommendation of what your guests should do per day. So you really look at where the markets are on which day. And if you're going to this place, then think about going for lunch there and perhaps visiting another attraction here. It's a very clever way of not only helping your guests, but kind of ensuring that they do go out and discover the area.
Yeah. It's all voluntary, although we did have a delightful family who came from Germany. Every day they went out and did everything on the list. And at the end of it, I said, "Oh, you must be exhausted." And she went, "Well, we did everything on your list." I thought, that wasn't, compulsory.
But they're brilliant recommendations that you give. But I've always had this feeling that you are much more of a hostess than most Gîte owners are. I think when you compare bed and breakfast and Gites, you have to be a really good hostess if you're doing bed and breakfast. You don't really need to see your guests if you're a Gîte, but you get quite involved in the kids and
Yeah.
doing stuff with them. And
Yeah, I think because it's, I don't know, I think holidays feel really important to me. And, we're not a cheap location. And people these days, particularly, have spent quite a lot of money reaching us, either by plane and renting a car or driving all the way. I think it's a responsibility to make sure that people do feel welcomed and that their holiday is important to us. And it is. I'm very much happy to keep them at arm's length if that's what they want, because you get a feeling very quickly. But a lot of people like to be a bit nurtured, and, our welcome pack is, I think, second to none.
what's in your welcome pack then? Describe it to us.
Okay, so the theory behind it is, because we're very rural, I want people to arrive and be able to take a breath, have a cup of tea and a piece of cake. So there's always tea, coffee, cake, freshly made, and milk and sugar, and some juice for the kids, and then a little snack for dinner. So there's always bread and cheese and some salad things from the garden, because we grow a lot of our own food. So there's always a selection of whatever's in my garden, usually tomatoes, lettuce, cucumbers and things, fruit, and a bottle of wine. So they have red, rosé and sparkling. And then there's butter and jam, and then breakfast the next morning. So then they're good to go. So then they have
Wow.
pastries and fruit, fresh juice, coffee. And so they can then get themselves back on their feet after their journey and go to a supermarket or market, and then they're, sorted for the week. I don't do anything else for the week.
And how do your guests react when they see the welcome pack?
Almost every single one of them are blown away.
And your house is separate to the Jeet building,
Yeah.
and you have quite a lot of privacy yourself, don't you? But you still interact with the guests on a regular basis, don't you?
Yes. Every morning we open the pool and we clean
Yep.
it. And every night we close the pool and I tidy the pool terrace. Often I'll meet somebody, mum or dad, who's having a quiet coffee in the morning on the balcony before the children wake up, or they're outside having a barbecue in the evening. So, we do have a lot of interaction on those two moments. We have had lots of drinks on our terrace with our guests, but most of the time we live our lives separately. Most
Yeah.
of the people who we have are very happy to have an owner on site.
Yeah. You said that you originally bought the property as a holiday home. And
Yes.
over the last 21 years, you have used it as a holiday home. You have spent time here, and now
Mm.
you are actually a resident here. And we'll talk about the future of your property in a bit. But can
Yeah.
you just walk us through the last 21 years of all the different lives your property has had for you, what it's offered
Wow.
you?
So when we first came here 22 years ago, we were on holiday in a little village called Servange. Like I say, our eldest son was a wheelchair user, and we stayed in an accessible holiday. And we got chatting to the owners, who were also British. They said, "Well, if you're thinking of buying," and my husband was like, "Well, we're not really." And I was like, "That'd be lovely, yes." So we came over to meet Phil and Sue, who had converted the Fair Met. And it turns out that he came from Looe in Cornwall, and he was at one of my cousin's weddings. So we just really hit it off, and he was a really nice man, but he was unwell, and they were selling this. So anyway, they sold it to us quite cheaply. So we had somewhere to come with Harry. Anyway, sadly, Harry died about 5 years after we bought him. We knew that was going to happen. But anyway,
He loved it there, didn't he? I remember you
did.
telling
It
me.
was just great. And everybody was free. Fields were just fields. There was no garden. It was all just rough and ready fields, and there was no pool or anything. It was good fun, and people came and stayed. And even though there's only 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, we seem to have hundreds of people here camping and doing showers run by their car batteries and all that. We had some really good times here, but then there was a big decision about what should we do with it. But by then, Tom and Millie were much older, our other 2 children, and they were like, "Well, don't sell it. We love it." Millie came out and did a few wild parties here, bodies lying everywhere, and they did a rave in the barn. And we had my girlfriends and I did our 50th birthdays here 14 years ago. And then it was like, well, what are we going to do? I'd had an NHS career and then set up a consultancy business. And I said, well, I'd like a break from that. Why don't I convert this and we'll do the Gites? And my husband went, okay, all right.
But you were still living in the UK at that point, weren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. So we sold our family home and lived in an apartment to fund this. And what we did, we converted our house and made it much more to our taste. And then we did the first sheet and put the pool in. So that was our first year project. And then we saved up and did the upstairs sheet and then the downstairs sheet. Then we did all of the work on the garden. So I now have a stunning garden and terrace and lovely ponds and potager and orchards. And then the guests have a really nice garden.
You now live in France. You
Yes.
made the move over, didn't you? How long ago?
I've been here almost permanently for about 10. Yeah, I go back a bit in the winter, but Peter's been here for 4.5. And we both got our carte de séjour and carte vitale and all of those administrative things.
Was any of that really difficult? Or
Not for me, because I was pre-Brexit.
Yeah.
For Peter, it was much more tricky.
Yeah.
When you asked me to consider things which, people might want to think about when they're starting off on this journey, is to consider the administrative burden, because it can be significant. He's only just got his carte vitale, but he's still on a yearly visa.
I had to renew my driving license, but I had a Dutch one. So I had to turn it into a French one. And you would think 2 European countries, it's not going to be very complicated. It took 10 months. And we'd applied 4 months before the validity ran out. So for 6 months, I didn't have a valid driving license. I had a piece of paper saying I had applied for one and I had to take that in the car with me. There is a real administrative burden that you need to be aware of.
Yes.
You visited here 22 years ago. You've had the most incredible, different kind of lives at your property.
Yeah.
Having it as a holiday home, living there, having family and friends come, and now paying guests. But what does the future look like for your property?
We have guests this summer. We have family coming out this summer. I am 65 and I had a very long, busy NHS career for 32 years and then had a patient safety consultancy and have done this for 10 years. So I'm a little bit tired. And I thought I would like to retire at 67. So this is going to take a long time to sell. Let's just test the market. So we put it on the market. The first person who saw it offered, and we went, okay, and said yes, which all sounds great and fantastic, but we have hit on a few concerns. We have used for 12 years 3 containers and an abbey to store all of the equipment, and they're all on zone naturel, and they shouldn't be there. They're very discreet. We keep everything very tidy, and we have to move them. So that could be a deal breaker for our buyers.
Yeah.
So tomorrow we're off to the planning department in St. Astier. We were led to believe that because the containers weren't permanent and it was only for farming equipment, we would be fine. And obviously we're not. So will fool us. It's French law. And that's how it is. So we have to now find where we can put them because we still need the storage. So that's a big piece of advice, is before you do anything, you get the right advice. And that's where working with somebody like you and Geek Guru has been really useful, because there's other pitfalls that I missed. So never feel afraid of reaching out. Talk to people, get other allies, go and find your Bureau de Tourisme, because they are also very, very useful. And very few people want you to fail. Most people want you to win, because of course it means they get.
I think it's true that when you come as a foreigner to France, you might make lots of assumptions about how things work or where you can put containers, and you really do have to check every single little thing.
Every single thing.
And talk to people. I set up a support network and get to know your tourist office. So you're hoping to sell at the end of this season, and then what will you do?
As little as possible.
But you'll leave France to go back to the UK.
We're going to go back to the UK. We always kept a small lock and leave, and we will go back to Bristol, our home, and Our son and daughter now have a smattering of grandchildren in Bristol. So we have a lot of friends here. I've worked very hard. I'm secretary of the Dordogne Ladies Club. We play mahjong every week with our other friends. There's a couple of other Gîte owners we know. So we have a good, strong network here, but it's not enough to keep me here.
The pull of your family is too great.
Yeah, it's far too strong.
How does it feel selling the place? It's meant so much to you over these years and has some really
Yes.
fond memories, but has it been
Yes.
difficult to sell, or are you so excited about the next chapter that actually it feels right?
I think because I moved around a lot as a child, because my dad was in the forces, I am not very sentimental about properties. So every
Okay.
property we have owned as a couple, we have done masses of work on. We're big on renovations. Once I'm done, I'm done. If I've made my mind up, I'm like, bye. And everyone else is upset. My husband is really upset because he feels it's too soon. It sounds really hard, but I am just not sentimental. I'm sentimental about people, but now I'm ready to go. I shall miss my garden is what I will miss. That
Mm,
is definitely where my energy is, and I love my garden. But I will have
yeah.
another garden in England.
And you have another feather to your bow. You are a Sordes inspector. So Sordes is one of the biggest independent platforms in the UK for gîtes and holiday accommodation in France, Italy, and Spain. Oh, and the UK. And they inspect all of the properties before they agree to take them on. And that is
Yes.
one of your roles, isn't it? So tell
Yes.
us a bit about that.
So I kind of fell into the role because we only ever knew we were going to advertise through Sordes. Despite your recommendations, I've never done Airbnb or anything else. You'll be horrified to know, but I always felt comfortable with Sordes guests. They are just delightful. And we genuinely have never really had a guest who I was glad to see the back of. So for me, it's been a winning combination. Our daughter-in-law works for Canopy and Stars in Bristol, and she said, "Oh, the role coming up in France for an inspector." And I thought, well, I am the world's nosiest person. And I love property. Escape to the Country is my favourite programme on the television. So let's go and see what everyone else is up to. I've inspected about 50 properties, and my role is only part of the process. So I'm the eyes on the ground. I'm not a decision maker.
They're not going to send you to a property without hoping that the property is going to pass. What criteria generally are Sordes looking for?
So what you're looking for is stylish home comfort. So somebody can go and feel at home, beautifully clean, and you've got nice beds and good bed linen, and it's comfortable. There's things to do, recommendations, nice restaurants and activities, things on site, and that the hosts are like people, because I do wonder sometimes when I read some of these forums on Facebook, which I do less and less frequently, because they're horrible. If you don't like people, then, don't offer them your home as a holiday space. How I'm greeted is really as part of the process. I went to
Mm.
inspect one a couple of weeks ago, and her almond biscuits I would walk a long way for. They were just to die for. And her guests will get that. And I think, well, look, they're just going to love her. And she was just incredible. And their story was fabulous.
You're looking for the whole package. It has to really be a home from home that
Yeah.
has a certain quality.
I think it's a really good process rather than just putting yourself onto something or other.com website and going, yeah,
Mm.
we're great. And you think, no, you're not.
One of the things I really like about Sordes is that several years ago, they split the company up, or the ownership of the company up, and they put a large proportion of it in the hands of the employees. The family kept, I think, a quarter of it, and they put the other quarter into a foundation.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I think they have ensured that it can never be bought out by
Yes.
one of the juggernauts out there, which is happening more and more. So I am very pleased that at least one independent place is going to remain independent,
Yeah.
and
For
not
sure.
become swallowed up.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't advertise to anyone else. Comes at a premium, but you get what you pay for.
Also quite interesting because they don't charge a commission. You pay an
Yeah.
annual subscription. And
Yeah.
again, that's quite unusual
Yeah.
nowadays. There are very few places that do that. It's either the kind of big online platforms that charge a subscription, and it's normally 200-300 euros a year. And that is quite risky because they're not necessarily going to deliver. Or you've
Yeah.
got Sordes, which charges anything from between 600 euros to 1,200 euros, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
per year.
We pay 900.
So it depends how many sheets you've got, how many pages you're going to have on Sordes, how much you're charging, all of those kind of things. So that is quite a big outlay. But if you're
Yeah.
taking 6 or more bookings a year through them, actually that works out really, really well.
Absolutely. It's worth every penny.
And how have you and Peter divided the tasks of running your Jeet business over the years?
Initially, it was down to me because it was my project. I had the benefit of Peter earning good money. So that is another thing that people need to be aware of. Presenting our figures, we've earned 50 plus thousand or 15 last year because, Peter had his treatment. So we've earned between 15 and 55 or something. So since he's been here, and also with the three of them running, I need him. I need him to
Yeah.
help me clean because 3 changeovers is a lot. I do the daily cleaning, but he will do all the tweaky stuff with the chlorine. He's installed a remote control lawnmower thing, which changed my life because I used to do that as well on a changeover day, is mow all the lawns.
What are the big expenses that you have? Because if you're doing the laundry and the cleaning pretty much yourselves and the pool maintenance, those are quite big costs that you're saving on. So
Yeah.
what are the big costs that you have?
Electricity. EDF is our biggest bill, 2,200 euros last year because of heating the pool. But we installed solar panels and we're now beginning to get money back from that.
Brilliant. But even 2,200 a year for your house plus 3 Gites plus the
Jeez.
pool,
Yeah.
I don't think that's too bad. That's
I think,
£2,000 a year.
I think water and the electricity are the most expensive. It's about £9,000 a year to run the Gites, but the electricity includes here as well and the water
Yeah.
includes here as well. So
Wow.
that's the advertising, the assurances, general maintenance, tax foncière, but that's for both because we're, both under the same tax foncière.
So 9,000 euros a year, which includes some of your private costs as well, but
Yeah.
basically 9,000 to run 3 Gites. And in
Mm.
a good year, you have taken 55,000. And in a year when there wasn't COVID and you were both able
Yeah.
to run
Yeah.
the place at full steam,
Yeah.
you were earning 55,000.
You can do it. And I mean, the people that are buying from us want to make 60, but they want to open for longer. They will easily
Yep.
do that with both of them fitting well. Absolutely no problem at all. And, after last year's 15, the lowest before that was 30, and that was me on my own.
And you've mentioned a couple of the top tips already.
Yeah.
There is an administrative burden when you move to France. You should definitely get to know your Marie. You should
Yeah.
talk to anyone you come across who has anything to do
Anyone.
with sheets or living in
Yeah.
the area. Join
Yeah.
clubs, join the Dordogne Ladies Circle, was it?
So it's the Dordogne Ladies Club,
Club.
DLCI. So it's an international organisation, a bit like the WI abroad. It's a huge resource as a woman. They have a male group called the Dordogne Older Gentlemen, the dog, and Peter's joined that. But they are great because they
I've
go
never
off and
heard
have
of that.
lunches, haven't you?
No.
Amazing.
Maybe
They
I'm not
have
old enough.
No, they're all sorts of ages. I mean, it's
Okay.
only called Older Gentlemen because originally it was Older Gentlemen that started it. They go to different restaurants, have a lunch once a month. They usually have a guest speaker. Peter
Yeah.
gave a talk about being in the Falklands War. So he was on
Wow.
HMS Glamorgan, which was hit. And then they go off and do other things like we do as girls. There's book clubs. We went off to Chateau Milan, Josephine Baker's pad.
It is so expat, this part of France. You do not have to feel lonely living here at all.
I did feel a bit isolated to start with. I found this Pilates group, and then this one girl said to me, "Oh, you should come to," and then it just extrapolated. And before
Yeah.
you know it, I was the secretary.
What other top tips do you have for people who are thinking of opening a Gîte?
Think about your money. Think about what you've got to spend. Think about what you've got to make, and think about why you're doing it. Are you doing it as a hobby? Or are you doing it as a hardcore business and you're going to be nose to the grindstone?
I think that's really true.
because I've been doing it as a hobby. No doubt about that.
Mm.
I've made some money, which has been great. So think about what you want with respect to things like aircon. You know, the last 10 years, we've got hotter. We are hot here in the summer. I saw you put some in. We've got some in our house. We haven't got it in the Gites yet. Will we have to? Almost definitely. So think about things you might want to add value to, and have you got the money to do that? Yeah. And the big thing is, how much do you like people? Because if you don't like people, they're not going to come back to you.
When somebody turns up in the car, you have to remember they might have been in that car with the children for 12 hours,
12
uh,
hours.
all dying for the loo and to
We've had people who have come across the channel and gone left into Belgium because they thought that would be the way to get to us. And so when they do arrive at midnight and
oh
you're
my God.
waving down the road as they're still driving past your Gîte, I'm like, oh my God. But then we've had the most amazing people.
Is that what you're going to miss? Or is your life in England going to be so full and busy that actually you're not going to miss being a sheet owner?
I probably will miss a little bit of that. If I went back through our guests, there are very few that I wouldn't want to see again. Somebody came last year and he was quite quiet. And I thought, oh, I don't know if he's having a very nice time. His family and wife are having a great time. And I really got on with her, but he was quite reserved. Anyway, he came up to me when they were leaving and he was like, I'd just like to say, and I thought, oh, here we go, and he went, I have traveled the world. I've seen stars in Namibian deserts and I've seen stars in Australia and here, there, and everywhere. And he said, I've never seen stars like I've seen here. He said, I'm coming back in 2027. And then he just got in his car and drove off and he was happy. And I
Yeah.
thought, oh, bless him. How lovely. And
Well, I hope you're not going to miss it. I hope that your new life is going to be so full and
thank you.
busy as a grandmother
Thank you.
that you're not going to miss it at all. And we look forward to seeing what happens with Rural Gîtes in the future.
Yeah, I don't know what they will call it, what they will do. I said Jeet Guru would be something I would recommend. And he said, oh, yes. He said, I think I've heard of Rupert, is it? So he
Good,
definitely knew.
good,
I shall continue to follow you on Instagram, even though I will not have
good.
a Rural Gîtes Instagram. Well, it's only because I'm nosy.
Yeah, well, quite right too. Well, we'll definitely keep in touch. But thank you very much, Annette.
And thank you for all your help because you have been really, really fabulous. And at
My
times when
pleasure.
I haven't really known where to go, you're very generous and I'm very grateful to you for that. And Frank, you're both
Yeah.
adorable.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the Gîte podcast. Brought to you by Gite Guru.
Well, I thought that was a great discussion about lots of different aspects of running a Gîte. I love the fact that they have got a property that has allowed them to do lots of projects over the years, unlike the way we did it, which was to hit the ground running and do pretty much everything all at once. And if you like projects, that's definitely the way to go. And I thought it was very honest of Annette to talk about that she felt quite lonely when she first kind of moved out here, but that she was very proactive in ensuring that she met lots of people and get involved in groups. And I think I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think there is no reason why you have to be lonely out here. There are so many different groups and meetings and events and walking clubs that you can get involved in. We were also a little bit worried about moving to the middle of nowhere in France and being a gay couple and it being a Catholic country. And we couldn't have been more wrong. There's absolutely no reason to have any concerns whatsoever. Been welcomed very, very warmly by people in the village and in the Dordogne as a whole. So that's all been really good. And I think it's really interesting that Annette and Peter are selling up after all these years. I do think that running a Gîte is a project or a chapter of your life that isn't infinite. I would guess that the average age of somebody moving to France and starting a Gîte is probably 40 or 50 plus. So you're not going to get 20-year-olds who are then going to run a Gîte for 30 years. I'm generalizing here. And actually, there's someone else who's been on this podcast who is in the process of selling up. And for that reason, I won't mention who it is. But I think I've been thinking about the people I know as Gîte owners, and I think that there is a kind of 6, 7, 8 year itch or after that period, People start getting their pensions, so the financial necessity of running a Gîte has slightly ebbed away, or there are health reasons for them to move back home, or family having grandkids or whatever. So I think that's the best bit of having a Gîte is you can buy a property in France and immediately start a business. You don't have to have qualifications. Obviously, the more skill you have and the better understanding you have of running a Gîte, the more successful you will be. But you can start a Gîte really, really easily, and you can stop a Gîte really, really easily. All you need to do is sell the property. So I do think that running a Gîte allows you a wonderful life, really, with lots of flexibility. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and see you next time. If you haven't met us before, we're Geek Guru. That's Frank and me, Rupert. We run our own Gites, Le Mas and La Mazette, and when we left our careers in Amsterdam back in 2015 to run these Gites full-time, they became our livelihood. We had to make the business work. It wasn't always smooth sailing, but through trial, error, and plenty of learning, we've built a 32-week season, 60% of which are returning guests. We started Geek Guru to share what we've learned and to help others succeed too. So, if you're looking for free tips, insights, and inspiration, head to gîteguru.com and subscribe to the Geek podcast. For ongoing updates, behind-the-scenes posts, and relevant Geek news, including tax changes and industry trends, follow us on Instagram at gîte.guru. And if you're after more personalized support, we offer tailor-made advice around your business, your Geek, its interiors, facilities, and the services you offer, and not forgetting communication and marketing, so telling the story of your Geek and making it visible to your target groups. If you're interested, get in touch for a free Zoom chat about your property, plans, and how we could help you. And don't forget, follow us on Instagram at gîte.guru. See you there!